academic standards of a school and the number of kids who either attempt or commit suicide. And Silicon Valley, and more specifically Palo Alto, has a few high schools with some of the best STEM programs and academic programs around the U.S. And they've produced countless numbers of really good students, technological savants, and yet in recent years, it's like some of these students with such high hopes for the future have been unable to cope with this level of pressure that comes from enrolling in a school with such high academic standards and with such a prestigious reputation. So I was just wondering what you think about what could be done about possibly lessening these really, really high standards so that students aren't as stressed and they don't feel so much pressure to live up to these expectations.
Actually, I would be really interested in knowing, it would be great to actually have like some sort of chart where maybe you can see like rates of suicide on one axis, and then the other axis is like
average GPA, something like that.
Not GPA, but kind of like you're saying, like how high the standards are, or
maybe average GPA.
Oh, I don't know if it's GPA, but whatever it is.
Yeah.
Some sort
Or
of
SAT score or something like that.
academic standard, and that just to see, because I do wonder if that is true or not, right? In terms of how much correlation there is, right?
Yeah.
Do you know?
I don't know I don't know the exact stats, but going to Menlo, I've seen that it's a really, really competitive environment, and with no one else to compare yourself to except Menlo students, people sometimes feel a little below average, and they might get a little bit not depressed, but
everyone's below. I mean, half the people will be below average, right? Because this average is you're gonna have people above and below, right?
But what they don't realize is that below average at like Menlo or Gunn or Pali, that's really like above average
in the rest of the country.
In the rest of the country and around the world. But they don't realize that because they don't have anyone else to compare themselves to. So I feel like since they can't see how other people are in school, they just look around and they're like, oh, like I'm not in AP, I'm not an A push or blah blah blah, like I'm not getting straight A's, and then they start to get really down on themselves and really hard on themselves, and they're unable to cope with the pressure.
Interesting. So I guess what do you I guess maybe what ideas specific do you have about like how do we solve this issue? Because it's definitely an issue, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think that if we could do something about,
because I think one of the premises you have is that the academic pressure is the cause, right? So to me, it might be. It'd be interesting to know how that is, and there's probably data about this, I would imagine.
I think another thing is like the amount of extracurriculars that people take because they want to, fill out their resume and get into a really, really good college. And that can also put an enormous amount of pressure. So I feel like something that schools could do is maybe be more aware of the number of APs and just be more aware of how much pressure their students are putting on themselves.
Actually, just out of curiosity, have you talked to the school board at all?
Not yet.
Okay.
But I think I should, because this isn't just it isn't just limited to city council.
Yeah, well, council we actually don't deal with schools much, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I was trying to get just get a perspective of this is very much this city could do some things, right? But a lot of this is like school board stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot of school board stuff. That's right. So this next question, I read like an interesting article, and it explained this woman who did a study on two schools in Connecticut. One was like an inner city school, and one was more of a upper echelon suburban school. And her expectations were that the inner city school would have students with more issues. But actually, she found that proportionally, the number of students with more issues was in the upper class, more high class school. And I found that really interesting.
You mean in terms of suicide?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so she found out, from her study, she deduced that like the proportion of students who smoked, drank, used hard drugs was higher in the suburban school. And so I thought that was really interesting because oftentimes people look at kids who go to these schools, most kids, and they don't really see like any problems. Like you have a great education, you live in a good neighborhood for the most part. And so do you think that sometimes people sort of like skim over or maybe even ignore the problems of these kids who have a great life and who have money because they have all these privileges? People somehow assume that they're fine. Do you think that's a problem?
Well, I have kids in a faulty school district, so I hope not. I hope, yeah, you know, but I don't know. That's interesting that the study found that.
Yeah, I mean, I found it really interesting too, and it really made me more aware just to be open-minded to everybody's problems, not just because if someone is poor, that doesn't mean that someone is rich or has a good education doesn't have the same problems.
Yeah.
Which was really eye-opening for
Yeah,
me.
that's actually surprising.
Yeah. And so I think this is another question for the school board, but I know there are counselors at every school, but I think that having a counselor who has had like similar experiences as the students, maybe with battling suicidal thoughts or depression, I think hiring a counselor who has had those experiences and knows how to deal with them and who's won those battles, I think that would be really beneficial because they're more empathetic, you know, to those students, and they sort of know what the students are going through.
Actually,
I think that's a good idea.
Ron, do you know, like, have you ever talked to the counselors at your school? No.
Because there are a lot of people that are assigned to one counselor, so there's like really no time.
Oh.
Unless you go there.
No, I'm just wondering what is it? I would hope that we would hire counselors that are empathetic, but I don't know. Actually, I haven't talked to any, so.
No, actually, I'm part of the Palo Alto Youth Council, if you've heard of that.
I have not heard of
Okay, it's like a group of 20 high schoolers, and we meet weekly. And I think this is my first year on it, but I've heard in previous years people have been trying to address the issue of teen mental health, and it's just a really big issue, and it's kind of hard to find a solution to it.
Yeah.
So, actually, Palo Alto Youth Council meetings are open to the public. So if you want to maybe come in one day, and
actually that's a good recommendation.
Yeah, to come and actually talk to the youth council, since that's kind of what we're trying to do. We're trying to just find. I know we're divided into subcommittees. I'm not on the subcommittee that addresses mental health. Right now I'm on a subcommittee to increase teen communication with city council. But I'm sure if you could come in, you could probably talk to us and see what ideas we have.
Well, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Actually, is middle school represented?
I think we do have someone.
Okay.
Bridget, I forget her last name. Bridget something.
Are there ways to like let schools know about this organization? Is there any way we can?
About what organization? The youth council?
Yeah, the youth counseling.
I think, I'm not sure if a lot of people know about it. We recently did a survey, and we're trying to get more outreach. One of our subcommittees is publicity, so I don't know. But we try to address problems in the teen community, and I think from what I've heard from senior members who've been there for longer is that it's teen mental health comes up every year, and it's just something that we never really do much about because it's just so hard to address. But I don't know. I don't think I can speak for the whole council, but it might be something for you to.
Well, it is a really big issue, and it's not going to
It
be
is.
solved overnight.
It is not. So if you have any good ideas, please feel free to come into one of our meetings. Like I said, they are open to the public, so.
Definitely. Yeah, and also, this is not something that the school board came up with, but there's many protective factors that can come into play and can really drastically change the well-being of a person contemplating suicide for the better. And one such thing is strong connections to family and friends, as well as support from the community.
Sure.
And so I had a question for you guys. How do you think we as a community, how could we provide more support, and what maybe can friends and family do to ensure that this person in question is feeling supported and loved and respected?
No, that's a hard question. We want to wrap this up in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, these questions are
Yeah.
these questions are
I don't know.
difficult.
I think this is a lot of. Actually, no. Have you ever talked to Vic Ojaki?
I have not.
So Vic, I think, is pretty involved in this area. He's one of the former mayors of Palo Alto. He may be a really good person to connect with on this. But I do think that it's something we need to address, because I think most people here in Palo Alto moved here for the kids. So I think there's a strong interest to make sure that our kids do well.
Yeah, definitely. So that's really all the questions I have.
Okay, well, thank you, Ryan. We really appreciate you coming in.
No problem.
This is a really important topic for the community, and I'm glad you're trying to make some headway on.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me.
Sure.
Very nice talking to you.
Good chatting with you.
Yeah. All right. Take care.
Yep. Thank you.
I think Max will join you.
Thank you very much, Connie.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Tanya.
Hey, Tanya. Great.
Excuse my casualness.
Okay, no, please,
Hi,
go
how
for
are you?
Do you want to make this on Facebook Live?
It's a good topic, a good way to get publicity.
No.
Okay.